my name is Mike McCowan. I'm from Meek & Associates, and I'm doing a practice run with my desktop 2 topic on page 56 called Calculations and Aggregations and Overall Profitability for your consideration and review. And I appreciate your feedback. So now that we've learned the different things that we can do to get multiple data sets talking to each other and the idea of a data blend, we're going to change gears here a little bit, and we're going to start talking about calculations and how Tableau is going to process some of these calculations. So right out of the gate, the first thing you want to know is that there's a couple of different types of calculations, and it's going to depend on whether or not there's an aggregation associated with it. So Tableau is going to take your query or your calculation, and it's actually going to send it to the database, and then it's going to get the results returned to it so that it's ready for visualization. So what I've done here for you guys is I've thought up of a quick conceptual example, which I'm going to draw on the whiteboard, and then I'll turn around and we'll kind of discuss it as a group so that we can understand and have a base level instinct almost for what Tableau is going to do with your different forms of calculations. So just give me 1 minute and I'll be with you guys in just a second. So when I was a kid, we liked to have a lot of garage sales, and then my mom, being my mom, always felt like she had to attach a lesson. When she was teaching us about money, she would have us build a small spreadsheet so that we could do a little bit of an analysis on the sales that we made at that garage sale. So we did garage sales a little bit differently than most people because my mom was a woodworker, a carpenter. She would actually go to these other garage sales and other wholesalers that would have broken, discounted items. She would buy them, fix it up, and sell it later on at the garage sale. So, that in mind, we actually turned a profit in several of our garage sales, and there was a couple low-level analyses that she liked us to do as the kids on each of the garage sales that we did. So up here on the board, we have a very, very small data set of a given garage sale, the wholesale price on the left, and the garage sale price that we made over there on the right. Now obviously, it's a garage sale, you're going to be taking a lot of losses on your items, but that wasn't really the point of the exercise when we were just kids. So, the two analyses that we would like to incorporate here is we want to look at a transactional data, whether or not we sold an item, if it was at a profit or if it was at a loss. And then we wanted to know overall whether or not the garage sale itself was a profitable garage sale, and then we could plot that on a different point with all the other garage sales that maybe we had run there in the past. And this, in essence, captures the difference between a row-by-row calculation and an aggregated calculation that we will put to use once we start making visualizations within Tableau. So the first transaction was almost the profit margin, I would say, of the garage sale, where you want to take all of your sales and determine what you made on all of them, and then say put a percentage to that to see how much profit you made or how much loss you incurred. So that is going to be taking that's going to be adding up all of my sales and that's going to be adding up all of my transactions, getting a sum for the total down here, and then dividing them so that we can get my profit margin. So this is an example of an aggregated calculation. And the second calculation that we would want to do would be to take the same transactions row by row to determine whether or not each one of them is profitable or not. And as I was saying before, this is, in essence, the way Tableau is querying your larger, much larger, more complex data sets in terms of the calculation that you tell it to query that database. So this is a very small scale example. How can we extrapolate that to a much larger business opportunity? It's actually not that hard. So say, for example, you are a brand new business owner. You just bought a small chain of, let's say, 4 different stores selling a variety of items in 4 different cities. As it is with new businesses, you're having a very tough time turning a profit in your first couple of years, and you want to take a little bit of an analysis, a deeper dive into your data to figure out what you can do about that. So 2 very level-headed observations that you could make after you've calculated your data set is to determine whether or not the store itself is profitable. Just like we did with the garage sale up here, we wanted to know if the entire garage sale was profitable. Same analysis with the store owner, you want to know if that store is profitable. If that store is profitable, maybe you copy some of the practices from that store and send it to one of your stores that isn't doing as well. Maybe you want to do some more demographic information or more targeted marketing on a store that is not profitable overall. But that would be up to the business owner. Our job as the analyst is to provide these insights in a visual way. The second insight that you would want to draw from your data is what percentage of each of my transactions are profitable. So it might intuitively make sense at first to just say, hey, if I buy a pencil for $1 and sell it for $2, I'm going to have profit on 100% of my transactions. But in the business world, we obviously know that this is not always the case. For example, if you have goods that depreciate over time, you might have to run a sale, in which case you'd be running at a loss. So if you have a ton of sales for tables, but 75% of those sales are non-profitable because you have to run a sale or you had a database error or whatever the case may be, again, that's for the shop owner. Our job is to just provide these insights in a visual way. So we're going to go ahead and take a jump into Tableau now, and we're going to see how we can accomplish those in just a couple of clicks. And hopefully when you see it on the screen here, it'll be really intuitive what Tableau is doing with your calculation in the background. So let me wait for my monitor to warm up here real quick. All right. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to make a very basic visualization right here. So we're going to be analyzing the sales, just like previously, over several different regions and maybe a couple categories. So let's go ahead and build that out. Drop my category there, drop my sales there, and maybe regions. So who can tell me what Tableau's favorite aggregation is? What's the default aggregation as soon as you get a measure? Don't cheat and look on the screen up here. Exactly, it's sum. So keep that in your back pocket here because that's going to kind of clue us in as to how Tableau is going to treat your calculation before we ever even test it out. So let's go ahead, we're going to make a new calculation. So a couple of different ways that we can do this. We can click this downward caret up here next to my dimensions. Or if I knew beforehand which measure or dimension I want to make my calculation on, I can do it from a right-click menu right there, and it just kind of pops it into my screen right there. My preferred method is the downward caret, so that's what I will be using, and we're going to go ahead and create a new calculated field. So as with our business use case, we know that we have 2 analyses that we want to do. We want to know if the store is profitable overall, and whether or not each transaction was profitable or not, so you get a larger picture for the percentage there. So just right off the bat, which one of those is going to be the aggregated calculation? And again, you can get some hints from right here. It's going to be the overall profit margin, so we're going to be summing everything before we do our calculation on the number that the sum that's given to us based on our database query. So let's go ahead and name a calculation of that, profitability overall. Well, let's start with transaction. Profitability by transaction. So extrapolating from what we did right here, we want the sum for the profit margin, but the row by row we don't want an aggregation to. So let's not put one in there. So right away I can see visually that there is no aggregation in this calculation, and when I press OK, I should have a new field over here along the left-hand side, which indeed is the case. So this little equal sign denotes that that's the calculated field that I just created. And if we drag that onto color, Perfect. It did exactly what we thought it would do. It changes it segments rather, the bar based on the percentage or the amount of transactions that were profitable versus the amount that were not profitable. Let's take a look at what the other one does. So we're going to go ahead and duplicate this sheet. And remember, best practices, we should be naming our sheets. I can't tell you how many times I've had to revisit a workbook later and I'm left in a runaround because I didn't name my sheets properly. So profitability by transaction. I'll go over my new sheet here. I'm going to double click right there and I'm going to name it as well right off the bat, profitability overall. So once again, I'm going to select this downward caret up here and I'm going to create a calculated field and we're going to name this exactly what I named my sheet. Profitability overall. Perfect. So in this one, it's going to look remarkably similar to the first calculation, except we're going to add our own aggregation. And obviously, when you get back to your own data sets, you might be using a different aggregation. But for now, we're just going to take the sum of my profit. We want to determine if that is above 0. Again, thinking back to this, we're taking a sum of all the prices, and then we want to determine overall at the end if that's above 0. So I'm going to press OK, and we should get a new field over here on the left-hand side. And there it is. But what do you guys notice right off the bat here about this measure? Yeah, it's blue. That's the first time we've really seen a blue measure, isn't it? So we remember from the diagram from earlier that we have discrete dimensions, which are blue dimensions, and continuous measures, which are green measures, and that's typically what we've been working with for the duration of this class. This is the first instance that we've seen of a discrete measure. So it's letting me know that there is an aggregation in there, but it's still only bucketing things or grouping things into two separate buckets, true or false, whether or not the profit is greater than 0. So let's find out what happens when we drag this one onto color, and I'm sure you guys can already see it. It's going to color the entire bar with profitable or non-profitable, true or false, based on your calculation. So this is the difference between the two calculations that Tableau can perform. It is very important that you understand before you're in Tableau how to work with these types of calculations, because if you start doing complex calculations, it can change if you change your aggregation, it can change the order of operations and give you some potentially incorrect data. Does anybody have any questions about this, the calculations, the difference between discrete and continuous, the example, the use case up here? No? All right, excellent. That's what I like to see. So if you guys could all turn to page 56, you guys are going to get the opportunity to practice here on your own. And I'll be walking around to make sure that everybody's on the right track. Feel free to flag me down if you guys need a little bit of help.